When I was young, I grew up in North County in Ferguson, and there weren't many judges or lawyers who I grew up with. It was kind of a blue collar, not a lot of parents had gone to college even, or much less graduate school, but there was a good friend of our family's was Judge Stephan. He was a Court of Appeals judge, and he was really an interesting person in our neighborhood and in our parish and church, and people really respected him, and I really liked what he was representing. And then I became a prosecutor when I was a lawyer, and I just fell in love with the courtroom. I loved being in the courtroom. I loved the atmosphere of a trial. I liked interacting with the jurors, and I really felt it was the best way for me to use my skill set to serve the public. You know, before I became a judge, I was a prosecutor, and then I was in private practice. And I think my philosophy was to understand that the lawyers that were appearing in front of me were doing their very best to get the job done for their client. I wanted to be somebody that was user-friendly, that the lawyers could come to with questions or situations, and I thought I was empathetic to their situation. I mean, there were times when I was in private practice where I missed a court date, where I had to be in 3 places at one time, and I knew how hard that was. And I tried to be empathetic to the lawyers that came in front of me. So my philosophy was listen to the people that came in front of me first and hear what they say, and don't prejudge and assume that you know what's going on in their life or in their mind. And I think I managed to do that. And I'm not sure really that my philosophy changed over those 22 years. I mean, some days it was more difficult than others to live up to that philosophy, but I think for the most part, my philosophy was serve the lawyers and the litigants that were in front of you as best I could, and that meant listening to what they had to say and not making up my mind ahead of time about what they were going to present to me. I think if I could be remembered for something of my time on the bench, it would be being a judge who was listening to the lawyers and litigants that were in front of them. Somebody who was approachable and listened intently to what they were telling me, so they felt heard when they were in front of me, and when they left the courtroom, they know that I heard them. I'm sure that I did not always make the right call. I don't think any judge would be able to say that every time they made a decision it was the right call. But I want to be remembered as somebody who tried always to do what I thought was the right thing in listening to the facts and applying the facts to the law as best I could. So I think that would be something I'd want to be remembered for. My advice for young judges would be, don't get robitis. You know, just because all of a sudden you get a robe, it doesn't make you any smarter, doesn't make you any more powerful. You need to make sure that when you wear that robe, you understand that you are a public servant. Too many times I hear stories of young judges who all of a sudden, that when they were a lawyer, they were really decent people who understood when they were applying to be a judge, everybody was in favor of them. And then they get the robe, and all of a sudden it's like, who is this person now? You know, they get power hungry or whatever it is. You are becoming a public servant when you get that robe, and you need to wear that robe as a public servant and not as somebody the public is there to serve. And I think it's important to have enough confidence in your own self to say, I've not seen this before. This is the first time I've encountered this issue. Why don't you help tell me what the law is, and I'll learn from that. And I think that you gain credibility from the lawyers that appear in front of you when you are not afraid to admit, I've not seen this, I'm unfamiliar with this. Can we take 5 minutes and look up what the law is together so that I know how to apply the law to the facts as you present them to me?